سفيرة الاتحاد الأوروبي في الإمارات لوسي بيرغر.
We have very high ambitions and that if things are going very well, we would like to try to conclude by the end of the year.
ولادة تحالف جديد ربما في مجال الطاقة بين الاتحاد الأوروبي ودول الخليج.
There are many opportunities for collaboration when it comes to the energy sector. Since the beginning of the conflict, we've contributed, I think, 170 billion euro to Ukraine in military and financial aid.
هل هناك إجراءات جارية الآن لتسهيل الرحلات؟
We are moving away from stamping passports to taking biometric indicators. We also look at whether countries are interested in joining Euro, and Bulgaria is joining in January 2026.
تابعونا في هذا الحوار الشامل عما يحصل اليوم وما هو قادم. نلتقي اليوم مع سفيرة الاتحاد الأوروبي في الإمارات لوسي بيرغر لنناقش أهم الملفات المشتركة بين أوروبا والمنطقة، من اتفاقية التجارة إلى مجال الطاقة والذكاء الاصطناعي وتداعيات الحرب الأوكرانية ومستقبل اليورو. تابعونا في هذا الحوار الشامل عما يحصل اليوم وما هو قادم. سفيرة الاتحاد الأوروبي في الإمارات، شكرا جزيلا لك. تشير بعض المصادر الدبلوماسية إلى أن مفاوضات اتفاقية التجارة بين الاتحاد الأوروبي ودولة الإمارات قد تختتم خلال الأشهر الستة المقبلة. هل هذا صحيح؟ ومتى يمكن أن نتوقع الإعلان الرسمي بهذا الشأن؟
So first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a really great pleasure to discuss what is happening in the EU and in the relations between EU and UAE with you today. You might be aware that during the launch of the free trade agreement negotiations, Commissioner Šefčovič, who is basically the trade chief in the European Union, announced that we have very high ambitions and that if things are going very well, we would like to try to conclude by the end of the year, even as soon as by the end of this year. However, of course, we had the first negotiations rounds, which started in June. The second round is ongoing currently in Brussels, and I think it is important to watch what happens during the second round to be able to tell whether things are on the right track and if things actually are going very fast. I think for the EU, extremely fast, or maybe if there will be some longer period needed to conclude. In any case, I just want to say that the EU has a history of negotiating trade agreements over several years, and this is not something that we are looking into currently, and I think that we are trying to go as fast as possible.
نعم، في يوليو 2025 حصل الاتحاد الأوروبي على تفويض لإجراء مفاوضات مع كل من دول الخليج الست بشأن اتفاق شراكة استراتيجية تشمل قطاع الطاقة، المناخ ومجالات أخرى. هل نشهد في الفترة المقبلة ولادة تحالف جديد ربما في مجال الطاقة بين الاتحاد الأوروبي ودول الخليج؟
So the strategic partnership agreement is really something that will complement the free trade agreement that we're negotiating in the UAE, and I think that that will really bring us a cooperation across all kinds of sectors, including energy and climate action. If we're talking about alliance, I see it more of a closer collaboration and partnership. And I think at both levels, at the regional level with GCC, but also bilaterally with the UAE, there are many opportunities for collaboration when it comes to the energy sector. You can see that the deployment of renewable energy in particular and the green transition in the European Union has been accelerated because of a lot of geopolitical developments, namely Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, but also because of our commitment and keen investment in green transitions due to our climate action policy. I think this presents enormous opportunities when it comes to collaboration with the Gulf, with UAE actually being the frontliner because renewable energy and sustainable energy is a key priority here as well, since more than a decade, as far as I know, not just because of COP28, and that's why I think we're very natural partners to work on this together.
مع ارتفاع أسعار الطاقة وفي ظل التوترات العالمية، هل لا يزال الاتحاد الأوروبي قادراً على الالتزام بأهدافه الطموحة لخفض الانبعاثات بحلول 2030 أم أن الأولوية اليوم انتقلت إلى الأمن الطاقي؟
our priorities remain the same. We're committed to reducing emissions, CO2 emissions or greenhouse gas emissions. We're committed to green transitions, to circular economy. We're committed to that not only because it is in line with our climate policy, but it also gives us competitiveness and resilience. And in terms of energy, it also should give us sovereignty and independence when it comes to energy supplies. I think this is also part of the lessons learned that I mentioned because of our previous dependence on Russian energy supplies that we're trying to now correct and have various partners, but also be a little bit more independent when it comes to energy. I think maybe last week some of the residents in the UAE followed the speech of our President von der Leyen. It's the State of the European Union speech, where she was very clear that we are right on track when it comes to our 2030 targets to reduce our greenhouse gas emission by 55% by 2030. So it's not only a matter of commitment, this is actually happening. We're also working on our next contribution to the climate action, global climate action in terms of nationally determined contribution ahead of COP30 in Brazil. We are open to partnerships and collaboration, like with the UAE, to continue working and investing in renewable energy.
تتقدم الإمارات بسرعة في مجال الذكاء الاصطناعي في وقت تبدو فيه أوروبا متأخرة نوعا ما. هل تبحثون مع الإمارات شراكة تقنية مستقبلية؟ وهل هناك مشاريع مشتركة سيعلن عنها قريبا في هذا الصدد؟
I wouldn't say that Europe is lagging. We have a little different approach to AI, and admittedly we are a little bit more reserved even in adoption and use of AI than in other parts of the world. And I think this is something that we should definitely learn from our partners, including in the UAE. UAE is spearheading when it comes to AI. The research and investment here is enormous, and it's really something to aspire for. We have worked on a lot of initiatives where we can actually try to benefit from the different approaches when it comes to AI in both Europe and UAE. There is an interesting research infrastructure in the European Union, for example, that can actually contribute to the development of AI with the UAE. And on the other hand, we have a need of investments when it comes to AI infrastructure in the European Union. That's very clear, and we are lagging there. There have been recently quite important announcements. We're looking into building AI factories and gigafactories. There is a lot of room for investments in data centers. And I think these are areas where the UAE is really a leader or spearheading ahead of many others. And I find this area very promising and worth to be explored.
بينما يعاني الاتحاد الأوروبي من تشتت الجهود في تطوير الذكاء الاصطناعي داخل دوله المختلفة، كيف يمكن للإمارات أن تكون شريكاً عملياً لتسريع بناء منظومة أوروبية خليجية قوية في هذا القطاع؟
We started small, to be honest, but things are picking up quite quickly. So for example, this Monday we actually had an AI ideathon in Dubai with the DIFC Innovation Hub, and it was women presenting AI-related ideas on solving water-related global issues. It was very interesting because there were really solutions presented to us by students and youth from the UAE that could have a potential to actually be implemented and to save water. We also hold an AI hackathon also for sustainable solutions at Sorbonne University on the 6th of October. Where we want to see again teams competing in presenting ideas to solve different sustainability issues and with the use of AI. And I think this is the kind of collaboration that we're currently looking into. But again, we have announcements. We want to build 5 AI gigafactories in the European Union in the next few years. And I think this is naturally the next step that we could be looking into and to bring our EU research in combination with the knowledge here and also the uptake here to continue building our AI collaboration. Of course, EU is an interesting market. It's a big market when it comes to AI and use of AI, so commercially it also makes sense.
نحن الآن في خضم تغيرات مع تطبيق نظام EES الإلكتروني لحركة الدخول والخروج الذي أطلق مؤخراً. إلى أي مدى غير هذا التطور فعلياً طريقة سفر المقيمين في الإمارات إلى دول شنغن؟ وهل هناك إجراءات جارية الآن لتسهيل الرحلات؟
The EES, so the entry-exit system that is being introduced in the European Union is actually a more efficient way of handling our border crossings, and it's, let's say, a modernized border crossing, something the residents here will know from the borders in the UAE. We are moving away from stamping passports to taking biometric indicators from the travelers, like fingerprints and a photo. But that's only done during the first crossing, and then you can actually use the automatic gates, which hopefully will make a faster and smoother transition over the borders. It is only being rolled out, so yes, the announcement happened, and it's going to start on the 12th of October, but there are 6 months for the member states to introduce these changes, and this is actually not only about European Union, this is about the Schengen area, which includes some non-EU countries, such as Switzerland.
نعم، مع عودة ملف الهجرة بقوة إلى الواجهة الأوروبية اليوم، ما هي السياسات الجديدة التي يعمل عليها الاتحاد لموازنة الأمن الإنساني مع الضغوط الداخلية؟
Last week, during the speech of the President von der Leyen, you could hear that we are looking into a migration policy that is both human but also brings security for Europe, not just the citizens, but people in Europe. And I think it's a balance that we're trying to find between these two aspects. We are planning, there will be a rollout of the Pact on Migration next year. But I think I want to raise one major issue that I think deserves a lot of conversation and focus on, and that's actually smuggling. It's really the smuggling rings and the illegal smugglers that are causing the biggest problem when it comes to illegal migration and all the tragic stories that you hear or read about in newspaper. And I think that's one of the areas that we want to also focus on.
بعد أكثر من 3 سنوات على الحرب الروسية الأوكرانية، تتحدث مصادر في بروكسل عن إعادة تقييم شاملة للدعم الأوروبي لأوكرانيا. هل يستعد الاتحاد لتقليص المساعدات العسكرية اليوم؟ وما هي الخطة البديلة؟
So our key priority remains support to Ukraine. We express over and over again our solidarity with Ukraine and our wish for a comprehensive and just and lasting peace. I think that I don't have to hide that we feel that the war in Ukraine and Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is also our war, and that Ukrainians are fighting for us. There is no discussion about reducing military aid to Ukraine. I think possibly on the contrary. Since the beginning of the conflict, we've contributed, I think, 170 billion euro to Ukraine in military and financial aid. We're launching new programs, including a drone alliance with Ukraine, where we front-load 6 billion euros. And we have opened a new fund which actually aims at contributing up to 800 billion euros through different aspects. But of course, when we talk about war and security and defense, it's not only helping Ukraine. And we had to admit to ourselves that maybe our level of readiness is not on top. Which is why we are building our own defense, where we actually managed, to a huge surprise to many of us, especially those who know the European Union, and I even studied it, we have managed to put in place a defense union, which 5 years ago would have been unthinkable. Our cooperation and our investment in defense is growing.
بعد أزمة الديون وجائحة كورونا والحرب على أوكرانيا والتضخم المتصاعد، يتساءل كثيرون هل لا يزال اليورو اليوم مشروع قادر على الاستمرار؟
I wonder who is asking, to be honest, because yes, we have had a number of challenges. These challenges were faced globally, I think, and it actually shook the global economy. But the one thing I have to say is that I'm quite impressed how the European Union and especially our member states were able to efficiently take decisions together. That's not what we have been known for. As at times we took decision at a rapid speed, and I think that also translates in our success stories. I also understand that our European Central Bank, together with the EU member states, have worked together and managed to push inflation back to below 2% when it comes to the euro era. When I think about questioning the euro, there are two things I want to say. I think euro is the only currency that has ever really, in a real way, challenged US dollar as a global reserve. So we are at, I think, 58% when it comes to dollar and 20% euro, and the next is below 6% Japanese yen. We also look at whether countries are interested in joining euro, and Bulgaria is joining in January 2026.
وما هي أبرز الخطوات التي تناقش اليوم داخل بروكسل لتقوية النظام المالي الأوروبي؟
We've been strengthening the European financial system since the financial crisis in 2008 and introduced a number of important measures to see more stability in our financial system, including our banking union. We also have European stability mechanism, and we've adopted a number of measures that actually help us to maintain stability in the euro area, which is quite large for one currency. What is currently being discussed is integration of deposit insurance and savings. And there are also some ideas around digital euros, but I cannot tell you more about it. I think it's more in the discussion stage.
أخيراً، وسط كل هذه الأزمات المتلاحقة، ما الرسالة التي تودون توجيهها اليوم لشعوب المنطقة حول دور الاتحاد الأوروبي؟
EU has always, I think, presented one message, one key message, and that's the one of peace. That's basically the reason why the European Union was created, and it's the main principle and main goal, in a way, that we have in the European Union. And I think that's the key message I also want to bring to the region. Sometimes it can look, the situation very desperate, like it was after the World War II in Europe. And nobody could have imagined at the time that actually there will be a union of the countries that fought such a gruesome war. But it was turned into an opportunity, and in Europe can also be a strong message to our partners here in the region. And of course, in this context, we want to extend our arm to our partners and work together towards this.
سفيرة الاتحاد الأوروبي في الإمارات لوسي برغر، شكراً جزيلاً لك.